Hello fellow YouTubers, my name's Mike, welcome to E.A.A. Originally this video started out in my mind, I was going to do a video just on bucket list cars. I've got a number of bucket list cars in my collection and I thought, well, I'm going to do a video just entirely talking about bucket list cars, why they're bucket list cars, what constitutes a bucket list car, and plans, things like that. But a subscriber actually said that they thought I should do like a 3-part series on my entire collection, and it just really made sense because most of the cars I do own are bucket list cars, so kind of made sense just to do it this way. So that's what we're going to do. This is going to be the first in a 3-part series. I'm going to talk about every vehicle in my collection, some details on them, some things like that. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on one individual vehicle, or this will end up being a 20-part series and they'd probably be an hour long each. So I'm going to kind of condense it down. If you see a vehicle that you want to get more information on, check out my channel. Go back and check it out. You will see that I have done a video on each individual vehicle in here, and much more in depth, much more in detail, and also some driving. I'm not going to do any driving in this video just because of time allotment and everything like that. So let's get started. So first things first, before I get started into this video, what constitutes a bucket list car, at least for me? Now this is just my opinion. People have varying opinions and what have you, but for me a bucket list car is not just a vehicle that you look at and say, yeah, I gotta own one of those someday. For me it's a vehicle that you say that and you think about it, you pine after that vehicle, and that is consistent for a period of time. So I had to kind of come up with a period of time that made sense to me, you know, a month, 6 months, or what have you. And for me, I'd say about 18 months. Some people might say longer. You could say 5 years, 10 years. There's some vehicle in here I pined after for 20 years. But I'm going to say 18 months that consistently I've said, you know what, that's something that I wanted. Someday I want to enjoy one. I want to have one. I want to own one and have one here in my shop consistently. And have kind of pursued them, looked at them, researched them, that type of thing. So that's going to be my definition of a bucket list car. That's going to be my benchmark, so to speak. So if you guys have a difference of opinion, please let me know. But for me, bucket list car constitutes at least 18 months of saying I want to own one, I gotta own one someday before I die. And just kind of a disclaimer, I'm not talking about every vehicle I own. I'm talking about just my collector vehicles. I'm not going to talk about my daily drivers. So the first vehicle I'm going to start out with is my 1967 Shelby Cobra 427 replica. It is a replica. A lot of people do come in and ask me if it's an original one, a real one. No, I can't afford a real one. I've got to have a kit car, but I'm okay with that. Now, some people don't want to call these kit cars. They call them replica. Other people call them kit cars. Whatever you want to call it, it's a lot of fun. Now, this one in particular one, it has a 390, not a 427, with a 427 dress-up kit. So it's a 4-speed manual transmission because, as I've talked about, these are vehicles that should be manual transmission. It's basically should be sacrilegious to put an automatic transmission in one of these vehicles. Hate on me all you want, but there are some vehicles that just should be manual transmissions. This is a vehicle that I chased for several years before I was able to buy it. I know the history on it. It was made back in 1992. It's only got not even 8,000 miles on the build. It's very clean. I love the British green. I love the white racing stripes, the black interior. It's not really authentic to the old Cobras, and the gauges are different, the shifter's a little bit different, but I really enjoy this car. They're lightweight, it's not a lot of power, it's not a huge fast car, but it doesn't need to be. I think these 390s had maybe about 300 horsepower, but with a car that only weighs 2,500 pounds, it scoots down the road very well, and quite honestly, it's got 295 tires in the rear. If you get into it in the first gear or two, it will get out from under you pretty easily. So, you know, short wheelbase, a lot of fun, gets a lot of attention. And for me, this is definitely a bucket list car. It's a car that I have wanted, I don't know, 6, 8, 10 years. In my opinion, if you're a true collector, if you could ever truly have one of these in your collection, you really should. There are a few vehicles I feel like every classic car collector should have. This is definitely one of them. If you have the chance to buy one, definitely do it. You'll have a lot of fun. Kind of a pain to get in and out of. You got to watch that you don't burn your legs on the side pipes and everything like that. But man, it is just so much fun. I'm just going to kind of work my way across the shop. It seems easier that way, and that way I don't forget what vehicles I've done. So this is my 1958 Plymouth Silver Special. The Silver Special is a pretty rare car. There wasn't a lot made in 1958, and I'm told the 4 doors were even more rare. Now, definitely a bucket list car here. I have wanted a 58 Plymouth since I saw the movie Christine, which was back in the mid 80s. So you guys do the math. I wanted one of these cars for a long time. Now, of course, I would have preferred to have a two-door hardtop, Belvedere or Fury, you know, typical white over red and everything like that. I really didn't want a four-door, but I kept coming across this car as I was looking for a 58 Plymouth. And once I saw it in person, I was hooked. I knew I had to have the car. I don't regret it at all. It is one of the best riding, best driving cars that I have. It's a 318 V8, Powerflight 2-speed push-button automatic transmission. This thing rides like a Cadillac. It's probably the smoothest car I own, including my daily drivers. It's comfortable, everything works. The car has never been gone through. The mileage is original. It's got 86,000 original miles. Nothing's ever been touched mechanically. Just a few things like suspension, you know, shocks, things like that. Certainly went through the carburetor, belts, hoses, things like that. Gave it a good tune-up, and the car runs great. It has not let me down, knock on wood. Like I said, a great running car. I had the interior redone, I put the white whites on, did a little bit of cleanup on the trim and things like that, but I really haven't done a ton to this car. I do have some plans for it. I would like to have the top repainted because it's not a very good paint job. It's got a couple of dings in it I'd like to have popped out. Back on the back quarter panel, the paint's starting to crack. Not a really great high-end paint job on this car, so I'd like to have that redone at some point in time. And that'll be it. I enjoy cruising this car. I enjoy driving this car. It's easy to get in and out of. Really can't say enough about this car. And even being a four-door, to me, you get it out, this is a nice looking car. Love the lines on it, the front end's beautiful, the fins are beautiful, it's just a great design. So the next vehicle is my 1979 Pontiac Trans Am. Again, another bucket list vehicle. You know, I grew up in the 80s, I remember seeing Smokey and the Bandit when it first came out, and what kid around 18 years old did not love the Smokey and the Bandit Trans Am? Now this is a 79. It's a little bit different than the 77 that he drove in the very first car, the very first movie, but it is just such an iconic car, and it's black, which I love Trans Ams in black. Wasn't really crazy about the blue interior. I like the blue on the outside. To me, the blue trim looked really, really good. The bird and everything like that is done in the blue. But truthfully, when I saw it online for sale, I wasn't crazy about the blue interior. I didn't think it worked. But once I saw it in person, I was sold on the car. I mean, I can remember the minute it pulled up, I was like, I'm gonna buy this car, I gotta have this car. I love the car, I enjoy the car, I'm not getting rid of the car. I've mentioned this before, eventually it will go to my stepdaughter Caitlin, but I'm gonna enjoy it for many years to come before it does go to her, and that's assuming that she does want it when that time comes. It's all stock, nothing's been done to it. T-tops, power windows, factory air conditioning. It does have an aftermarket sound system, which is okay, it's not bad. But I just enjoy driving along with this car, enjoying the music of the motor itself. I've never taken the T-tops off. I need to do that at some point in time. That sounds like a good video idea to me. But yeah, just a great car. Definitely a bucket list car, and definitely one that's going to stay in my collection for a very long time. Now here's a vehicle that does not get a lot of attention, but is the one that really started it for me. My 1965 Chevy pickup. Obviously short bed, fleet side, half ton. My dad bought this brand new in 1965, bought it right here locally. I've owned it since 1985, so again, you can do the math. Not a bucket list vehicle, just simply because I pretty much knew from the time I was about 13 or 14 years old that I was gonna get this truck. So it wasn't really at the point where I could say, yeah, I pined after it and I longed for it because I knew I was gonna get it. But done a lot to it over the years, driven it. I drove it back and forth to high school, then to college, drove it off and on throughout adulthood until I got to the point where I finally just decided to park it and really go through it. And it's got a crate 350, 700R transmission, disc brakes up front, drums in the rear, Dakota digital dash, vintage heat and air, interior's been redone. It's a nice truck, but it was all done about 15 or 20 years ago, so some of it's starting to get a little dated. That's okay. I don't drive this truck a lot. I don't do a lot with it. As a matter of fact, out of all the vehicles in here, it probably gets driven the least, but it is the most special to me. If I had to get rid of everything and could only have one vehicle, it would be this vehicle, just because it is so sentimental to me and means so much to me. Eventually, it will go to my son. He knows that. He will get it down the road. Again, these vehicles go to my kids down the road when they're established, they're out on their own. They've got a good career, they've got a place to keep it. Until then, they're all going to stick with me, and I'll take very good care of them for them. This one is my 1967 Chevelle Super Sport. Story behind this one is my mom had one identical to it. When my mom and dad were married, they bought this one like this, I should say, brand new in 1967 from a dealership right here locally, same place that they got my dad's truck. And I always wanted a 67 Chevelle. Going back into the mid 90s, I can remember actually going and looking at a Malibu, and I at the time just thought, I just want a Chevelle. I want a 67 Chevelle just because my mom had it. I wanted to be able to sit next to my truck, be like my mom and dad are there. And so I've looked over the years off and on, and when I found this one, blue on blue, 4-speed, 396, identical to what my mom had basically in every way, I knew I had to have it. Probably paid a little bit more than I could have gotten it for, but I think the guy knew that I was pretty sentimental and that I was going to pay the price for it, and I'm happy. I enjoy the car. I'm not going to get rid of the car. This is definitely a keeper. Eventually I could see this going to my son Bryson, but as I said in my last video, he's very young, so I got a few years to worry about that. But yeah, this is definitely a keeper. It's so much fun. It's just a typical muscle car. Got that big block sound, 4-speed. You know, by today's standards, not the fastest thing in the world, but it's still just so much fun to drive, so much fun to own. I think it's beautiful. I put the rally rims on it. I think they set the car off just perfectly, and it's not perfect. I mean, you can see it's got some hood fitment issues. It's got some fitment issues around it. Seems like every time I come out to it, it's got a new scratch on it. I don't care. I love the car. I'm going to continue to enjoy the car, and this one will definitely stay in the shop. I would like to maybe put a 5-speed behind it at some point in time, but, you know, not really a big deal. That's not a priority. I've got a lot of other priorities to do on other vehicles, so I'll just keep this car the way it is. I'll enjoy it, I'll drive it, and have a good time with it. So that's going to do it for part 1. I'm going to be working on part 2. It'll be out in the next couple of days. I want to do these videos and release them pretty close to one another, within a couple of days of one another. So be looking for part 2. We'll go over another 4 or 5 cars, 6 cars, what have you, and then part 3 we'll sum it all up and get down to the very end of it. If you like the video, please do give me a thumbs up. If you're stopping in for the first time, subscribe to this channel. As I said, anything behind me or anything I've talked about today that you're interested in, you want to see more of, just check out my channel. You will see a more detailed video on each individual car that I'm going to be talking about. Instagram PO box in the description below. God bless. Take care. Have an absolutely amazing day.